Who is Lily Alba?
Lily Alba was an extraordinary woman who lived in the early 20th century, and she was born Ina Wegener, and she became perhaps the first woman to transition and undergo gender confirmation surgery.
And why is she considered a pioneer? I mean, what's so important about her story?
What's extraordinary about Lily is that in an age in which there were no predecessors, there were no transgender women that she was aware of, she had the bravery and the courage to pursue living a life authentic. And I don't know, I find it really interesting that we hear people go, just be yourself. And it sounds like the easiest thing in the world to do, just be yourself. And yet it's not. And particularly for her, it was a huge, huge battle that she undertook with great courage, and she won. She became herself.
Did you do it alone? I mean, tell me about Gerda and what her role was.
So Gerda was a formidable woman, again living in the early 20th century. She was an artist, she worked independently, she had ambition, she had drive at a time in which those things were perhaps frowned upon for women. And she had great love for Lily, who was then living as Ina Wegener. And one of the extraordinary things about this story for me is the profundity of love. What an extraordinary thing it can be, how it is not defined by gender, by sexuality, by race, by religion, by anything. It's something other. It's about the soul. And at its core, the Danish Girl is an incredibly unique and beautiful love story.
In the film, what is the catalyst for Lily to start to explore her feminine side, or Lily and Gerda to start exploring that together?
Well, it's interesting, but when I was preparing to play Lily, many of the trans women I met, in fact all of the trans women I met, described how they had known that they were a different gender to that they were assigned at birth from the first moment they can remember, from when they were 3-4 years old. And one of the interesting things for me is there's the most extraordinary drawing of Lily when she was living as Ina, with this long starched collar and this tight tailored male suit, and it's almost as if she and society have constructed this sort of male exoskeleton which she had to unravel. The catalyst for Lily's emergence was a moment in which Gerda, who was painting portraits, was painting Ulla, a sort of famed ballerina, and Ulla couldn't turn up for her sitting. So she asked Lily, who was then living as Ina, to put on stockings and shoes in order that she could paint the detail. And for someone who had repressed themselves for many years, who had concocted an exoskeleton under which, a sort of guise under which to survive.
And then take me through the balls of bloom scene. So this is Lily's first immersion into society.
So I suppose for me, I related that to this scene. The scene in the ballroom is Lily, for the first time, coming out in public. She has a certain safety in the sense that she has framed it as playing this game with her wife. There has been a sort of playfulness and a caprice in it, but actually the stakes are higher for her. And within the furore of watching women, of that extraordinary adrenaline-fueled wonder that comes from blending, from being approached by men to eventually being kissed by a man, but that fear and danger is sort of underneath all the equal excitement and joy, I suppose.
What did you and Tom discuss about the delicateness or the beats that you wanted to hit with the character throughout that scene?
Throughout this scene, I suppose, for me, because the scene was one in which Lily, it was a game, it was framed within that way, is she is just emerging. And so she has been living as a man for a long time. She has been wearing these high starched collars. She's been in this sort of exoskeleton of maleness. She is beginning to have the environment in which she can relearn her femininity. So she's watching other women. She is copying. She is finding out how she can discover her own femininity, but also under this incredibly high stakes time. You've got to remember, at that time, this notion of it was unheard of, absolutely unheard of. So there is a fear element to the scene as well.
Tell me about working with Alicia, and if you had a favorite scene or a favorite moment.
I think Alicia Vikander is just the most phenomenal actress. She has this amazing mixture of formidable technique. She trained as a dancer, and people often cite that, her performance in Ex Machina, this incredible poise. But what blew my mind was that she has this deep, visceral relationship with her emotions, and she has a boldness that is on another level, and she challenged me and raised my game continuously. It was one of the huge joys of this film, was getting to work with her.
You know, while there is an audience that will relate to Lily's story specifically, what are some of the themes that a wider audience you hope will relate with in this film?
Well, I suppose what Lily's story is a very unique story. That one of the things I learnt whilst prepping the film was that there is no one trans story. Everyone's story is different, and of course it is. Everyone is different. But I suppose one of the things that really touched me is this notion of being yourself. And it sounds like the simplest of things to be yourself, and yet I think it's one of the hardest. Now, Lily's story and Lily's specific life, the courage that she needed to be herself was dumbfounding. But I think, I suppose within all of us there is finding an authenticity. What it takes to live a life authentic is a complicated question.
Or how do you hope the audiences are affected by the film?
And I hope that, what do I hope? I hope that audiences are as moved by the love story that's at the kind of, that is the ground rock of this, of the Danish Girl, as I was when I read the script. I hope that they fall for these two wonderful women who challenged each other, who challenged society, who were pioneers in many ways, almost 100 years ago. And I hope through their story and through their love that they can galvanize us to aspire to live an authentic life.